and welcome to Overlanders Then and Now. I'm Tom Bingle, and joining me, as always, is my fellow Buckeye State native and
Yeah.
current Nutmeg Stater, Jim King.
Hey, Banks, I've lived here for 40 years, and I'm still not sure why Connecticut is called the nutmeg state. It's either a plant or a tree or something. Growing up in Ohio, I knew exactly what a buckeye was.
Uh,
In fact, we used to collect them at Lakewood Park, and then we'd have buckeye fights, believe it or not. And if you got hit with one, oh man, it hurt.
wow,
Were there any
wow.
buckeye trees in Toledo?
Jimmy, not that I remember in our neighborhood. We had lots of
Hmm.
maple trees, but not so many, can't recall too many Buckeye trees. I'm not sure what they even look like, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Maybe from the sound of your Buckeye fights, that's probably a good thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
Jimmy, speaking of Toledo, today we're going to be talking about Toledo, Ohio's sister city, Toledo, Spain.
Mhm.
We'll also reflect on our time in Madrid. But before we get there, Doc, do you mind if we just take a little bit more, just about a topic we covered in the last video?
Oh, oh, you mean the one where you predicted I'd end up old and alone?
Jimmy, not exactly. I just want to
Yeah.
make a point that travel, it seems, Jimmy, is a great equalizer.
Great Equalizer. It sounds like a TV show. What do you mean?
Jimmy, it seems like when you travel with somebody for any extended period of time as we did, you really get to know
Hmm.
the other person on a deep, deep level, much deeper, Jimmy, than just about any other way,
Yeah.
except marriage, of course.
Okay. All right. I agree with that, but I still don't get the equalizer thing. What do you mean?
Jimmy, here, maybe it's the wrong word, but it's just that I don't know. You're both on an equal plane, Jimmy. I don't mean money or status or whatever. I just mean you really get to know each other, and it kind of puts you on an equal footing. Jim, I'm not explaining this very well.
Well, are you saying that the more you travel with someone, the more you get to know both the good and bad? Each of you get to know each
Yeah, yeah.
other's little idiosyncrasies that may be driving each person crazy.
Jimmy, that's
But
it, Doc.
okay.
Doc, but the key is to figure out a way to deal with these differences. And,
Right.
we did it through very candid communication,
Mm.
Jimmy, and compromise, like we did in Torremolinos. And then early on, Jimmy, that major thing was about our different tourism styles. And this was such a constructive decision by you. And to have the chutzpah to say it, but to follow your own style of touring a town, which was different than mine. Great
Mhm.
move and a great travel moment, Jim. And if you're able to do that, the relationship can be strengthened, and the journey then becomes a success. Otherwise, things can go south in a hurry, Doc.
Yeah, that's true. I think, yeah, the decision to travel independently for a while really helps make the whole process smoother.
Yeah.
But I want to back to a point you made earlier. At the risk of blaspheming our Catholic upbringing, would you recommend traveling with someone before getting married?
No, Jimmy, definitely. Definitely. Personally, I think you really don't get to know someone unless you travel with them.
Yeah.
There's something about traveling, Jim, that really puts a relationship to test, whether you know it or not.
Mm, true, true. Well, I don't think it should be a prenup requirement, but it might
No.
reveal some personality quirks about your intended that you
Yeah.
might want to know about before you marry them. So,
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
shall we move on to Toledo?
Yes, yes, Doc. Toledo. Jimmy, why don't you start off, Doc? What springs
Okay.
to mind about this medieval town that seemed to just rise up on a huge foundation of rock, Doc?
Now, it's funny, of all the places we visited, I'm reminded of Toledo almost every day because in our dining room, we have a picture of it.
Really, Jimmy?
Yep.
No, no, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, well, it's not of you and me, it's of Katie and Daniel, my kids.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, we took a vacation in Spain when they were in their teens, and Toledo was a real
Oh,
highlight.
neat, Jim.
In fact, I think I appreciated it more on that trip than I did when I was there with you.
Jim, was it the company? I won't take it personally,
No,
Doc.
no, no, no. I'm kidding, of course. I think the point is that I was kind of burned out at that point.
Mhm,
We'd been traveling
mhm.
pretty intently for two
Yeah.
months. Yeah, I very rarely spending more than a night or two in the same place. So I don't think I paid as much attention as you did to the architecture and the history of Toledo. Yeah, I was at that point I was all cultured out.
Doc, I know what you mean. We were both exhausted and also bummed that we would soon be parting ways.
Yeah.
Still, Jimmy, it was hard for me not to be completely awed. For me, it was like that Rothenburg of Spain.
Mm.
Just so unique, Jimmy. Just wonderful, and new and something different. And again, with its unique and unlike other cities that we'd been to at that point, Doc.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
we say that about every city we visit, it seems. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
but what about Toledo stands out for you now, 50 years later?
Jimmy, it's the unique in the appearance of Toledo. It just
Yeah.
seemed, in a funny word, smooth, how it all worked out. It combined that old and new architecture and the
Mm.
history, with these narrow lanes and squares that I mentioned in the written part. And they did not want to knock down that old heritage. And it also, Jimmy, it seemed like they were not trying to impress anybody. In doing it, it just really was very much together, really. And then, Jim, funny, well, I hear you saying about being burned out from the traveling. Doc, I have to say, I did do my usual thing
Yeah.
in Toledo and read up on everything I could and let's go. And I found it fascinating again, Jim. These great moments in the history of humankind that there, just like Granada and Alhambra, there was a long stretch of peaceful coexistence among the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims.
Well,
Wow.
sadly, that peaceful coexistence was a bit of a blip in history. So, I hope that since it was possible back then, it can be possible today. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen in our rapidly diminishing lifetime.
Oh, Jimmy, Jim. We'll take a moment here
Uh,
now.
hey,
Jimmy, the mood's getting a little dark here. Let's talk about Madrid, Jim. Madrid
yeah.
now.
Oh, I loved Madrid.
Yeah, Jimmy, not mean as much. It didn't, yeah, Doc, it just
Really?
didn't, yeah.
Why not? What didn't you
Um,
like?
Jimmy, I think maybe my perspective was skewed a little because it was finally starting to dawn on me. I think that we were near the end of the journey.
Hmm.
Our first one, as it turned out,
Yeah.
or maybe Jimmy, Madrid's busy streets, the modern buildings, were such a contrast to Toledo's peaceful atmosphere that
Yeah.
it kind of left me cold, excuse me, Jimmy, except for the Prado and the spacious Retiro Park in the center of the city.
Hmm.
I know you love the Prado,
Oh,
Doc.
I
I remember
did.
that.
I did. Yeah, even more than say the Louvre. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's way more manageable than some of these huge
Yeah.
museums, and
Yeah.
and it, I can only take museums and shopping malls for so long. Then I start to feel like I need an influx
Yeah.
of oxygen. But
Yeah.
but the Prado is so much more
Yeah.
manageable, as I say. I've been back there, and I still
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that way.
Interesting, Doc.
Yeah.
And then Jim, Retiro Park. Jimmy,
No, I
I
know
know
this
we
is coming.
wrote this on the blog, but I laugh every time I hear you tell this story. So, Jimmy, please share it with our readers and
W-
watchers.
Well, it kind of aligns with one of the reasons Spain was such a highlight for me. Now I'm not claiming I was ever any good at speaking Spanish, but back
Uh-huh.
then, I could listen and catch the drift of what was being said. It
That's
was
good.
it was
That's
fun.
good.
Anyway,
That's good.
the story you want to hear is I was sitting on a bench in the park, Retiro Park, beautiful park, by the way.
Yeah.
When an older gentleman sat down at the other end of the bench, and I don't remember how, but he started up a conversation. He probably asked me if I was an American, which was, I'm sure, very obvious. And when I answered "sí," he took off a mile a minute in Spanish. But I was actually able to ask about family and his work. It turned out he was a lawyer, had a couple kids, and he kept
Huh.
complimenting my Spanish, which, let's be honest, it was pitiful.
Oh, no,
And then
I
he
can't
asked me what I
believe
thought about Spain. And that's when I showed my true proficiency in Spanish. I said
it.
something like España es muy grande or muy bonita. I can't remember which. But he was so kind to just nod very seriously as if I'd, you know, just communicated some incredibly insightful observation of his native country. Just a
Yeah, that's
little
oh,
embarrassing.
you are always so perceptive, Jimmy. Jimmy, so what's the lesson learned 48 years later, Doc? What do we got from all that?
About Toledo and Madrid.
And Retiro Park, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, altogether, I think two things about Spain stick out for me. First is,
Yeah. All right.
get off the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
Back then that was Spain. most of it was definitely off the beaten path. So, doing that just makes traveling so much more interesting. As we discovered after this particular journey, and we're in Asia, where, common sense is important, which we didn't have much of back then. But, do look for places that aren't, you know, must sees every single place that you go. Do you agree
Yes,
with that?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy, I agree because we visited places both in Europe and Asia that most people back then would consider really off the beaten path, and those became the most memorable,
Yeah.
ironically
Yeah.
enough.
Not to mention dangerous at times. So yeah, like I said, you have to use your head, which we didn't. But
Okay,
that's
Jim.
for a
All
later
right.
blog. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
All right. Well, that's
so
for sure.
anyway,
Now, Doc,
yeah.
I'm sorry. You said there were two things, right? The one, and then
Yes.
now what's the second thing, Jimmy?
Okay. Well, this is not exactly as insightful as España es muy grande.
Yeah.
And it is advice. It's a bit cliche. It's
Yeah.
advice everyone's already heard, but at least try to communicate with people
All
in their own language. If nothing else, it can lead to laughter, which is the best bonding strategy there
Yeah.
is. So,
Oh, Doc.
those little phrase books, they can come in handy and, get
Yes,
things
yes,
going. But so
yes,
what
Doc.
about you? What
Yeah.
are your 2026 reflections on our time in 1977 Spain?
Jimmy, well, a couple things. One, distinctive landscape. It was
Yes.
very arid, very rough,
Hmm.
and very warm. It's hot, probably, one of the
Oh.
hotter areas, even in December. We can imagine what it was going to be like in summer. Jimmy, then, Jim, and this was, leading to this overall feeling of such a surprise. Very friendly, naturally friendly people, Jim,
Hmm.
and came across with a warm feeling. And Jimmy,
But
they
but
were always
but
so
Banks,
hospitable.
why were you surprised that they were friendly?
I don't know, Jim, because it wasn't, because how would you say it? Again, being off the beaten path a little bit. This was not on the main road of the backpackers tracking. And so, we didn't meet a lot of other backpackers that had been to Spain or anything. And so I didn't really have a feel for it, Jimmy.
Oh, well,
And
that could be the reason they were friendly. They didn't encounter a lot of backpackers
yeah,
like us.
maybe. Doc, maybe,
Okay.
and Jimmy, the other thing is a sense of timelessness.
Hmm.
The history has been there. It's happening right now, and it will continue on. But Jimmy, the surprise is the one kind of adjective that I describe about Spain. It's just that it was so friendly, so welcoming, and helpful, very helpful, Doc.
I mentioned earlier I have been back. Have you?
Jimmy, yes, I have been
Okay.
back, Doc. One thing was a fascinating time, which is a walking the Camino, not all of the Camino, which begins in France and goes all the way over to Santiago de Compostela, but walking. But Jimmy, it was interesting because I did encounter some other, Spanish, you say second or Leon and Burgos and little villages, and there,
Mm-hmm.
Jim, that same friendliness, that same
Nice.
helpfulness to the foreigner was very pleasant, Jimmy. And also Barcelona, with the famed Las Ramblas with the beautiful pedestrian
Mm.
zone. And then, they had the Olympics in '92, and they really helped build up on the waterfront there in Barcelona to combine. And Barcelona, Jim, as you know, has become a hot, hot city to visit. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I keep hearing about it, and I've not visited it yet.
yeah,
So you've given me a good reason to go back to Spain, which
yeah.
I always welcome. So
Yeah, Jim. I mean, it was a wonderful feeling, and as you said, I would not hesitate to head back to España muy grande, Doc.
all
Oh,
right. Well,
Jimmy.
before
Oh,
it gets any
yeah.
sillier, I think that's a wrap.
Yes, that's a wrap, Doc. Okay.
So what's next?
Oh, Jimmy. What's next as we head on? You ready? To the City of Lights, Paris. And Jimmy, I hate to say it, our goodbye as we go our separate ways.
Temporarily, yes, right.
Yes, temporarily. All right, but it's been great so far, Jimmy, and everything with that. So,
All right.
okay. Well, Jim, without further ado,
Adios,
adios,
amigos.
amigos.